The figures coming in slightly weaker than what analysts were expecting. In the month of August, economists were originally forecasting 180,000 jobs might have been added, but in fact it was just under 170,000, so slightly lower than what analysts were expecting. But also, probably more importantly as well, they've revised down the figures for the months of June and July as well. So even though we have been seeing some improvements in the jobs market, the headline figures might not have been as strong as expected. But also this is very significant because it's the last batch of the jobs data ahead of the American Central Bank's next meeting, which starts just in a few weeks. And that's when the majority of economists have been expecting the Federal Reserve to start withdrawing some of its stimulus measures that have really supported the country's economic recovery. We're talking about their bond purchasing program. So basically the Federal Reserve has been buying $85 billion worth of government bonds each month in order to stimulate the economy and, I guess, flood the markets with some cheap money. But if the jobs market improves, the Federal Reserve has been saying that they will soon start to withdraw some of those measures, which might really happen in a few weeks, which will have quite an impact on the stocks market as well.
You say that the Federal Reserve was hoping to start doing that. The pressure then on Ben Bernanke will be to decide, is that still a good move, or is he going to have to keep going with the money, and what impact will that have?
Indeed, today's figures definitely do make it much harder for investors to speculate whether or not, as you say, Mr. Bernanke starts withdrawing those measures in a few weeks. Some economists have been starting to guess that maybe it's not going to happen until the end of this year as well, because I was speaking to a few unemployed Americans earlier this week, and they were telling me that even though some of those headline figures might look very strong, their life hasn't been getting that much better, that they are still finding it quite hard to find work, especially a full-time job, because we have to remember when we say that all those jobs have been added, we're not just talking about full-time jobs, we're also talking about part-time jobs. So younger people or senior citizens might have found it easier to find work after the recession, but people who are in the age of between mid-30s to mid-50s, people who should be making the most amount of money and spending most amount of money, they have been having quite a tough time finding work even after the recession.